Looking for all the latest tips, tricks, updates of what's going on in the recruiting industry, check out the Digital Recruiter Sunday night newsletter. I am not here to blow up your inbox. I don't have enough time to create an email every single day. I once a week send you impactful, a big thing that I've learned this week or realized from working with hundreds of recruiters, owning an agency myself. I'm in the trenches every day like you are, and I'm sharing everything that I'm seeing every Sunday, from content, from automation, from how to get better clients, how to find candidates quicker, how to grow your team, how to hire people, everything in between. The link is in the comments. Sign up today, or you can go to my LinkedIn profile, Clark Wilcox. It's the first link on my feature section. You can sign up there. It's all free. So you get all the tips, everything that you need, free in your inbox every Sunday night. Sign up today. Welcome to another episode of the Digital Recruiter podcast. I have a special guest today, Debi Wolfe, who was introduced by another staffing coach, Kim Henderson, a mutual connection, introduced us, and we had a great conversation. Got some awesome experience, a really cool background, a new company that you built, that you launched on your own, Imagine More Group, but a background at K-Force, at Hayes, sold a staffing company. So we have a lot to learn from you and a lot to dig into today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I have been looking forward to this. I enjoyed
Yeah.
our initial conversation as well, and immediately we were so aligned on so
Yeah.
many things, and time flew by so fast. So I
I,
assume the same for this conversation.
It's typically how it goes. I think, right, we book like 15 minutes for an intro call, and I think an hour later, we're like, well, we should probably save some of this for a podcast
That's right.
recording. So, but that's what I know. There's a lot to discuss. I love learning, from someone like yourself that's, been at the bigger firms, started your own consulting now. I mean, I'm relatively a rookie in even 11 years into this industry, and I've loved learning, from Kim, and kind of getting to know her network. You being part of that, of like just the wealth of experience and knowledge, and you seeing different phases of recruiting and how drastically it's changed since the 90s to now. I mean, it's changed so much since I started. I mean, it's
Mhm.
crazy, and I think there's so many lessons, a lot of wisdom there to kind of tie together, because people are obsessed with some of the digital tools, right? It's
Right?
digital
Yeah.
recruiter here, but nothing beats the traditional ways of building the relationship, building the rapport, kind of having all that. And I think it's really important to like bridge that knowledge gap for recruiters today. So I'm super excited to have this conversation. So well, let's dive into it.
All
Tell
right.
us, how did you get started in recruiting?
Yeah, that is a really great question. I was in laboratory sales and I had never even been a temporary, didn't
Yeah,
know what temporary solutions were.
yeah,
But I was ready to leave corporate America and had a friend who became a business partner. And she's like, this is an area that's really growing and we should do this. But all I knew of were the administrative temporaries, and I wanted to do something a little more professional level. So we actually started off placing scientists. So I was able to use my background, of a background in science, and that parlayed into some scientific sales. And then it made sense to do that in staffing. There were very, very few competitors. It still was a concept sell at the time.
yeah.
There were just a couple competitors in that space. So I just jumped in, like
Yeah.
didn't know, figured it out on the way
Wow.
each day. Yes.
I mean, that's really the only way to do it here. So
Hmm.
this was back early 90s, right? And so I mean,
Yeah.
this was what, faxing resumes, making the calls, right? Were you walking people like to the first day on the job? I know that was like a big deal at Aerotech. They would
Yeah.
talk about that all the time. Yeah.
And putting an ad in the newspaper had to be
Yeah.
in by Wednesday so it could run on Friday. You could collect resumes over the weekend to look at them hopefully resumes would come in Monday, Tuesday. The process was very slow,
Yeah.
and in cutting and pasting resumes to blind them to then fax them. Yeah, it was the whole thing.
It's crazy to give context, because it's just happened the last 2 hours. I got texted a role last night from one of our partners. I built out the list. My wife helped me build out as well. So I attached Sales Navigator. She attached Recruiter Pro. We kind of combined forces. I built a campaign on Dripify. I launched it about 12 o'clock. It's 2:11 right now, Eastern. I already have 3 screens set up. on an automated campaign. I mean, it's, we have,
Yeah,
I think, one today, two tomorrow morning. Like, the start date, they want to make an offer by next Friday. So we're going to have like the submittals, interviews. It's like, it's crazy how
it
quick it
is.
is. And I just got that thing up and running. Like, I can turn it off now. I can have it running for a whole 2 hours and potentially have three submittals within 24 hours off of it that are like quality and just, I mean, it is crazy the difference.
Yeah.
There's some of the tools make. Nowadays compared to but I still love, like, again, your background, like the way I was trained in it. It's so nice to just have had to do it somewhat the harder. You had much harder than I did, but to still to have that to appreciate the technology of today, right? I mean, from that start until to now, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Wait for us. I mean, it's Monday, Tuesday, like, kind of. It's just surreal compared to what we could do today.
Yeah, we could probably spend an hour just talking about that, really, with the layers, because like it's that whole phrase, we're in the best of times, worst of times.
Yep.
I mean, the technology has really helped eliminate so much of the administration and the minutia, and it does help with the client's need for speed, because clients, when they have an opening, when they have a need, there's pain, right? They want the pain to go away quickly, and it's competitive landscape, all that. So that's wonderful. The old school way, we thought we were moving fast. However, what it required was you really had to have a talent base. Like, you had to know your candidates. You had to have, because you wanted to have candidates before a need came up. So there was really this building of relationships and really connecting and knowing the people, and having that credibility. So it had a little bit more of the consultative feel. Like, that's was more of the differentiator. You really had to know people, have that talent base, so that when something came up, you had people to call. So things get one, you're always giving up something to get something else, right? And the market's taking us on those twists and turns. But yeah, it's a lot easier and faster in a lot of ways. But then some things are harder,
Yeah.
that are harder now too, right? It becomes a lot more transactional, and the competitiveness is more, and you have far more candidates to sort through.
Yeah.
It's just not possible to connect with the number and the volume now. So anyway, like I said, we could spend and like go down philosophical routes and all kinds of things there that could be
Yeah.
fun, but we'll
Oh,
leave that for another time.
yeah. Well, we can definitely talk about some of the challenges for today, but I do want to dive into. You mentioned the concept cell, I'm curious your differences. Not only convincing the clients to start working this way, but even on the candidates, I'm assuming this was a concept
Hmm.
sell. Like, were they open to being contractors and all that? Like, these scientists, like, how was it even convincing them and building up that talent pool? Which I think people take for granted now, but you
Yes.
really had to work for it there. And at the end of the day, that is what we're bringing to the table, right? It's you, yourself, the account manager,
Hmm.
and then the candidate relationship. So, did you have challenges convincing people to be like, wait, what is this? Like, what's happening? Like, why would I do this? Like, what was that like?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because there was this term, the Kelly girl, back in the day, where are you familiar with that term?
No, explain. Yeah.
See, yeah, the Kelly girl. The Kelly girl was founded with Kelly Services, and they have
Okay.
moved away from that brand, but it really started off with placing receptionists and administrative people, very much a administrative and blue collar type of an industry, very transactional. We need someone today. And then professional services started, like technology actually was already in place, and finance and accounting, but scientists had not come into play yet. And it was that, I graduated with a degree in biochem, so I understand this crowd. And I also was selling to a scientific community. And there's a little bit of they think they're special.
Yeah.
They
And
just do. Like, there's this hierarchy, and like the intelligence and the
yeah.
smart, and why would anyone do that? And these projects and assignments and research go for years. Um, and so it was like, and then even within science, there's a hierarchy of importance. Like, a
Yeah.
biologist is not as revered as, for example, a molecular nuclear scientist, right?
Yeah.
So, and there's just this ranking. So there's
Or a Bond villain, in my opinion. But yeah, no, I feel like that, and that's always the titles of the people in the Bond films. But I don't know.
yeah.
That's about as much science as I know. Sorry, go ahead.
There's definitely this hierarchy and sense of prestige. And
Yes.
so to do something on contract was very much seen as a step down and a
Mm-hmm.
lower, you can't get a job. So it really challenged status at that point.
Yeah.
So it really meant I had to truly have a case to explain the value to the candidate. So that was an entirely different case than it was for the client side. The client side was understanding and convincing them that candidates would take these jobs,
Yeah.
as well as the benefit to them. And then on the flip side, the opportunity that it could present to the candidate
Yeah.
side. So I really had to understand and have a business case and also appeal to what their needs were and understanding them. Thankfully, I came from that community, so I could understand that, and I had credibility in that community.
Yeah.
So when I switched from selling equipment and supplies and going into talking about people, that was very different. However, I at least had the audience and the credibility
Yeah.
in speaking to them, and then
Absolutely.
building out a business based on referral and reference. So it really actually started working really well. And it took a little bit of time too to find the niche in the area. So like, for example, quality control, some of the testing, environmental, medical technology, some of those were more earlier adopters than the research and the universities and pharma started coming along. So it was an amazing time though.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
That's great. So what ended up kind of being the hook and the sell to these candidates, right? I think that's really really interesting kind of nerd because we always are trying to convince clients, right? But sometimes it's candidate driven. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what was the hook? And did obviously you built it and when you sold it, so actually it worked well. But what was it that started to get them to be like, okay, this could make sense for me?
I think it was the entry point getting into being able to have access into, which is common still today. It's
Yeah,
still really kind of like, it's just having being aware of that this is another opportunity of how you can get a job, because
yeah,
the big companies would go on site to universities and recruit, and there'd be only so many options there, and they would sometimes have their slate full by the time they did their hiring, and it didn't, not everyone out of the class would be able to secure employment. But also, too, there were a lot of people that would go on to advanced degrees in science. So usually, a lot of people don't start at a bachelor's. We placed a lot of people at the bachelor's level. So it
yeah.
was really an entry point for them into getting their first job out of college, getting experience, building a resume. So they didn't get paid much. Like, I remember we had microbiologists we were offering pay rates of $10 an hour.
Wow, wow. What was the bill rate on that?
17.
Okay, not bad, not
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, we had
Yeah,
good markups.
yeah, okay. Um, and yeah, I mean it's and the burdens aren't as bad. Can't be as bad as skilled trade, right? Because they're in the lab, so it's not as bad. It's like a little bit higher than like an admin type role, but not like a
Yeah,
mechanic or anything else like that. Yeah,
workers' comp can come into play, and
for
all
sure.
those other things. But
Yeah,
yeah,
nice. So you built it up. So you started placing a bunch of people. You did it for about 3 or 4 years, right? And then what? K Force came knocking.
yes,
Like,
yep.
what was the journey to get to that point?
Well, we had to have something that was attractive. So
Yeah,
definitely had to deliver on the results, had to have I mean, those are the things that you look for in any healthy business, a diverse client base. We
yeah,
were geographically dispersed. The trends were continually positive, so demonstrating consistency and growth and success. Had a solid team that didn't have a lot of turnover. We didn't have much churn in the team, the recruiting and sales team. In order to be able to do this, and I'm just very process and structured anyway, because it was just me. I mean, I had two business partners, but they were more investors. They were not active in the business. So I was
yeah.
running the business. They were more investors. They had lots of opinions, but they didn't necessarily
As
run
many
anything.
investors do. Yeah.
Yeah, so they didn't run anything, but they were definitely very valuable. And in order to do this without killing myself, I realized I got to have some systems in place. So I just learned along the way and figured it out. I mean, I think I'll credit my scientific background into experimenting and
Yeah.
continuing to improve things, because I was like, oh goodness, this is wasting a lot of time. I can't do, like, each of my offices now are doing this differently. Oh, we're going to come up with like an interview form, right? I mean, just very basic things that is, everyone's doing today, but I thought they were very clever
Yeah.
because it was very helpful to me. So I really built up really common processes and everyone really followed those. So there was rigor and it
Yeah.
was attractive. And K Force at the time was expanding, and scientific was one of those up and coming niches. Also, clinical research was up and coming for them. So
Yeah.
anything in that clinical, medical, scientific space was starting to boom. And they wanted to launch that division, and they contacted us to be a launch pad for their scientific division.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
so they take you and you're from under kind of their name. And so then you're just leading that division. What was that like? Like kind of that journey, that experience? Like did you notice some big differences and you had to adapt to things that you're like, wait, we're actually doing this a lot better than I realized we were doing compared to some of the bigger companies out there? Like what was some of the experiences there?
Yeah, there were definitely pros and cons. It was a
Yeah.
hard message to deliver to the team because we got really close, right? When you're a
Yeah.
smaller organization with 7 locations, so that's not competing with the big team, big companies, but we were close, a
Yeah.
close team. We were having success. We had that company, the small company feel that people like, and now we were going into this massive organization that brought about a lot of who's this. And by the way, all the sales and recruiters I hired had scientific backgrounds. So by nature, our scientists are typically a little more cautious
Yeah.
about things, a little more, let me hear. I'm not just going to believe you. I want the facts. I need to see
Yeah.
for myself. So there was
Yeah.
a lot of change management to get through with that. As people came in, they could be have more status maybe in our smaller organization. You could be number 1 or 2, but now you're coming in
Yeah.
this massive organization. Where do you fit in there? What about your title? You could be a manager here, but now what am I here? So there was definitely a lot of change management to get through that. We did really see how we had built. I didn't know until we were acquired how special it was. We built the infrastructure, and that we really leveraged a lot of the things we did as best practices in other parts of K-Force. So we had this thing called we called it the War Book, to help with consistency of presentations. And so that actually developed and was created and rolled out at K-Force. So from that standpoint, that was exciting. What I didn't have that I was thrilled about with K-Force when they acquired us was the level of training, because I was doing a lot of the training on my own. It was
Yeah.
me flying into the market in front of the whiteboard, going out on calls, sitting in on interviews, sitting by the phone, all the things you do. And K-Force already had a lot of material to help do that a little bit greater scale. And I was learning too, because a lot of the stuff I knew about staffing, I just figured it out. I did not have anywhere else to really go. I couldn't go to a competitor and say, hey, tell me all your secrets.
Oh shit. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I just started this out. And so they had so many resources for us. They had more money. I mean, we knew, like, even agreeing to sell, it was important because we knew that in order for the team to be able to grow and advance their career, we needed more cash. It was getting to the point where to really grow. So I ended up staying with K Force because they kept giving me additional responsibility. They were committed, and we grew the business eventually out to 22 locations nationally
Yeah, which
at
is
K
great because
Force.
I saw that. Right? You were there for another 9 years after
Yeah.
they bought, which is like very. I mean, I don't think is very common
No, it's not.
when that happens. And I was like, it just shows like it seemed like the right partnership. Number one, which is always kind of really cool to hear. And you see people talk about selling their companies, all that, but to kind of have that mutually beneficial partnership for that long after, I think probably speaks volumes. I'm sure they probably felt pretty good about their investment and vice versa.
Very
Uh,
much.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is super cool just to kind of have that expansion. What was it about the training? I think it's cool that you had done this, had built this, sold it. Right? There's a lot of status credibility that comes along with that. But then one of the things you say that was most eye opening was the training. And I run into a lot of agency owners and leaders that it's like I got to figure it out. Like I'm good. right? Like, and all that. What made you kind of take that approach or be kind of open to that, or why was that kind of like the main thing that stood out to you that you put importance on?
Yeah, back in the day with the VHS,
Yeah.
all your listeners are going to be like, "Oh my goodness, can we get to
Yeah.
AI?" We're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Hey, to
But
know where you're at, you got to know where this came from, and I think it's
yeah,
super important to tie all this stuff together.
yeah. Now things have advanced so much. The videos they had from their top producers and top performers on
Yeah.
how to, I mean, they had the detail broken down on closing, identifying red flags,
Yep.
calls, the opening calls, all the different things, pricing, negotiating, you name it, everything, candidate marketing. And I actually, when they acquired us, I remember I just binge watched before binge watching was
It was a
popular.
thing. Please be kind, rewind, and then
I
watch, and
was
then rewind. Yeah.
binge watching on these videos they had, and I was just eating it up like, oh my gosh, oh yeah, we'll add this in. I was learning so much because I think, but if you're asking me like, what are the things that are important? I think continued curiosity to learn how to do better, listening to
Yeah.
others, hearing what they do. How can you apply that and adapt it? It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but take something and put it in your toolkit. And I mean, now all of a sudden I had people to talk to that I never had to talk to about this industry. It was like this great collaborations, great opportunity to collaborate. I worked with someone there to formalize an operating model too. We had a strategic operating model and a tactical operating model. So one that was strategic. So as we expanded, it's like, how do you know when it's time to add to your team? You start to get to those points where you're like, at what point in time do we add a recruiter? What point in time is it okay to have admin support, or do we need another account executive or salesperson? Or when is it okay to go into another market? We created a model for that, and then we also created one that was tactical, that was very specific at the desk, like what are the things that you need to do that are kind of those health check type things. So I just had a great time collaborating. I had incredible peers and counterparts, people I still keep in touch with today. We still tell stories, have our battle wounds, but our
Yeah.
victory, we talk about our old victory laps, all that stuff. So I mean,
Mhm.
it was great to have colleagues. It was great to have additional resources. Even just the back house, like the financial team that would really be able to do the numbers and dice them and unslice them in all kinds of ways to be able to talk about those, as opposed to maybe what I could get out of QuickBooks or something. So it was
Not
really
QuickBooks Online. Yeah. Uh,
yeah.
not that
So
time.
it was
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun, and I had a great leader that gave me full autonomy. So I felt almost like, because a lot of people, as you said, they don't stay; they tend to leave. They take the earn out and then they're off to their next adventure. But I really learned that I really just loved what I did. I love leading. I love building a team. I enjoyed the scientific niche because there's so much happening in science. I mean, it's fascinating to me to walk
Yeah.
into these different labs and these different manufacturing facilities to see what's coming, what's being researched. I mean, so intellectually, it was really fascinating, and I was just given such autonomy. It was almost like I was able to still be an entrepreneur inside this organization.
Yeah.
Obviously, there were ground rules, and I had some boundaries and some bumper guards, but I really was allowed to just build the business as a way I needed to.
I mean, that's fantastic. And I know we're going to talk about leadership and some of the qualities and some of the things around there that you've done. But you brought up something interesting that we haven't really covered much on this podcast, but I get asked about it all the time: is when do I hire? Who do I hire? How do I hire them? All that stuff. Do you kind
Mm-hmm.
of have like some guiding principles on when to start adding salespeople or a recruiter or an admin or break into a territory?
Yeah, I have a really strong opinion on this,
Oh, yeah, I
and
want to hear it.
it's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
controversial, and I often find myself arguing. So
Okay.
if we were doing this live, the chat would start blowing up right now, I'm sure. I am a big believer. Like there's this thing called a stress curve. Have you ever heard of it?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like if you have no stress, you're not productive, and
Yep.
if you have too much stress, you're not productive, right?
Hmm.
There's this peak amount of finding out where you have just an amount of stress that makes you at your peak productivity. What I see as a strategy, and this is not just from my K-Force time, although they sometimes had subscribe to this,
Yeah.
but from other organizations as well, is there's this whole butts and seats strategy. Like, we want to grow our revenue, so let's just hire more people. And so they hire thinking we're going to hire people and we're going to go get the business. I really don't believe in that. I just watch productivity drop. I've never seen it work. I watch teams cannibalize themselves. I watch people. I just don't believe it works.
You're speaking my language, so keep
I don't
going.
believe it
Yeah,
works.
you are speaking my language.
I'm like, you have to know your leading salespeople. So that's where I do believe it's helpful to have been on the desk and done the sales, because salespeople can sell. And they take advantage of their leaders' empathy of remembering how hard it was. And they're like, oh, yeah, it is hard. Oh, yeah, I remember all the no's I got. I remember how, difficult it was getting into clients and so on and so on. And so there's this push. You get a lot of internal push that I want another recruiter, and then admin help. They all want admin help, right? If someone could do this for me, I could do more of that. Data has never shown in any of the organizations I've been in, data has never proven out that that has worked. So to me, it's important to keep people optimally stressed and understand the true metrics based upon that niche. So each niche is a little different, right? So like placing and keeping the stress on a light industrial is a little different than maybe IT or healthcare, nursing.
Yeah.
But what is that sweet spot? What is a sweet spot of the number of job orders someone should be able to manage? And I'm talking good ones. So the
I,
leader has to be in there active. Like,
not a
I
bunch of
don't think,
VMS ones. Yeah.
oh, for crying out loud. It's like, no, you can't. Nope, nope, nope. I know this game.
Yeah.
Clean these up. I had to kill it or fill it Friday. It was like, this has been
Ooh,
up
I
here a
like that.
long time. We're going to kill, you either fill this or I'm killing it.
Oh,
And
that's a
they're
great
like, and
term.
I'm like, and if you do fill it, the commission, it's going to the house,
Yeah.
because we're killing this thing, because you lose focus, right?
Yeah.
So I think you have to really understand and bring data in there, and also really watch your people to understand their strengths and capabilities, to know when is it time to add, because you really do start to see the team breaking, or you do see opportunity being lost. Also, too, I think it's a leader's responsibility to see what's in the pipeline. Because if you know something big is coming up, you're working on proposals, you're getting into an account, and you want to be able to have someone ramped up to be able to capitalize on that. So there's a lot to watch out for that I think is really why it's so important for leaders to be really engaged and on the line with their teams. Not in the way. Don't get in their way and bug them just about KPIs, because they all complain about that and just talk about you in the break room. Be in there helping them strategically to say, what do we really need and how do you really help them in the process of closing some big deals and making placements. So
You said many things that I loved, and I'm just nodding my head. I mean, most of 30 minutes here, I've been nodding my head, but because I agree with pretty much everything. Uh, the just to add people is crazy to me. It's even now that I run a coaching and training program, and I'm like, you're gonna hire someone that doesn't know what they're doing. Over, I can just arm your top 10 people and make them 5 times better, 10 times better. If you just
mm-hmm.
let me learn about them, figure out the automation, figure out the content, let's get the marketing dialed in for your top 10 people. And you don't even need to hire anymore. You're going to get way more out of them because they already know what they're doing.
Yeah,
And there's so much untapped potential in your top producers, especially now in the digital age. It's crazy
yeah,
to me that people would go to that as the first line. I mean, I've had co-founders not know what their niche is and try to figure it out. Oh, we just hired a BD person from one of the big firms. Like, what are you doing? Like, you don't even know who you are as a brand or as a company. So you're paying this expense because really what it is people don't want to do the work. How can I figure out my life to not work? It's like, is that really the goal? Is that ever
mm-hmm.
a possibility in recruiting? It's not. If you fundamentally this business requires you to be paying attention every single day.
Yeah,
Like it's, I mean, you shouldn't even be thinking of mailbox money in recruiting for what 10 years. I mean, you sold your company and you're still active in it, right? I
yeah,
mean, that's like to go like
yes.
I don't think you should really be in this industry if that's how you're thinking of it. right?
Mhm.
Or your cut of the pie is going to look a lot different if you do want to hand off a lot more stuff, and that's okay. Right? You can do that, but you just have to set better expectations of what that is. I think people want right most of the pie without doing any of the work. I'm like, look, you can read Tim Ferriss' 4 Hour Work Week all you want, like get a Shopify thing or get an MLM because it's not happening in recruiting. Like you got, as you said, you got to be on the line with your team and learn how to delegate and learn how to empower and build. But as soon as you get off the line, things are going to crack real quick.
Yeah, and I do think people need to see you on the team in the role you need to be in, not in their way. Again,
Yeah,
because it's like if they know you're in it and invested with them, they will deliver the
yeah,
results and the numbers, right? It's not the sense of let me just have our weekly call and check in to see how many interviews did you get this week? How many submits did you have? How many
yeah,
send out? Whatever your terminology is in your organization. But they because you're going at it as a team. I mean, this can be really lonely if you're just
yeah.
out there all on your own. Just I've got to go get my sales numbers this week. But if they know they're on a team and you're all working together and you get that momentum, I mean, it just starts the flywheel
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, on a team, but to your point, like I love Kill It or Fill It Fridays. Oh my God, that is so good. And it's we had that red zone at Aerotech, right? It's we had to call out every meeting. Where's this at? Where's this at? And if it went to the wash, which is a role that just kind of disappeared into the ether, which was like the most painful and the worst thing because you'd rather another agency fill it than have a role just kind of go away because you did a poor job qualifying it. I think, and just what I guess what I keep hearing over it is like the process and the training. But at the end of the day, you're like good roles, and that seemed to be again the
Mm-hmm.
foundation of every great agency that I've talked to, or great producer or owner like yourself. It's like qualifying great business, and I got to
Yeah.
imagine because I want to start talking about like the HR experience, the chief people officer, and what you're doing now. It seemed I got to imagine it probably stemmed from just that like this has to be dialed in a great role. So like, yeah, I see you nodding. Like,
I know.
where did that come from? How did you develop that? And like, yeah, talk to me about the foundation of that.
Yeah, and I think it comes out of it. It ties in a little bit to what you're talking about. Just take it a little step further in the sense of we talk about a lot of getting out into the field and talking to people and not having so many unrealistic job orders or even non-job orders. And it's like the thing is that your job and your role, the way this is fun and you get that repeat business is by impressing the client and the candidates, right? Your name and your reputation is really so important in this industry. So it is impacting. I mean, if you do things well, I mean, you're wasting time on some of these other jobs that steal. They're stealing from your good clients. They're stealing from your good candidates, and how you really impress your clients is really what builds your business. How you really impress your candidates is really what builds your business. And how you work inside the team, who you are internally when the clients and the candidates aren't looking, also matters. And so, how I got into HR, I did not seek this out. It was not an inspiration or a goal of mine. It came to me. I was out there in the front lines telling my team to avoid HR, right? I mean, we all know that's a staffing thing.
Yep.
Leaders tell people go directly to the line manager, the hiring manager, know your different buyers in the organization. And oftentimes it wasn't HR. Sometimes in the big clients, obviously you had to work with them, but you wanted to really build your base with working with your client, your front line. So that and you know what they got in my way too. It was the team that always were mavericks out there wanting
Yeah.
to just break the rules
Yep.
because the government comes up with these rules that make no sense and make our jobs more difficult, but HR has to implement them. So I really was not interested in this type of a role to begin with. I was called actually back by K-Force to come and do an HR role. And as I thought about it, I thought, this could be like a secret weapon. Like if you really get your back office really cranking, because all companies can find great salespeople. I mean, there's just a war out there for finding the best sales and recruiting teams. What's happening in the behind the scenes when the client is now dealing with you after the placement's made? what's happening now when you are the strategic client and you've got all these specialty onboarding requirements and so on, and billing needs, and also too, what is the core value of the organization? How is that permeating from your people out into the marketplace, your brand, your external brand and marketing with the organization? So I thought this is an incredible opportunity to come from what we call the front office, right? And
Yeah.
really create a vision to differentiate. And as soon as I went into my role, I was like, we are going to realize that we all make placements too. We're not HR that just does the handbook and calls when the leader's like, hey, I got to put this person on a plan. That's not what we do. HR, I'm such a believer that the people team helps make placements too. And how do they do that? They can help people by, making sure people are better equipped. I mean, you can shorten onboarding timelines,
Yep.
how do you get people to start more quickly? How do we keep people and redeploy more quickly? How do you retain your people? I mean, a lot of those things were like so important to the very slightest competitive edge. It's like when you watch someone play golf, it's hard for me because I'm not a real golfer, but I can tell you that like the difference between these elite golfers and someone that's a really great scratch golfer, if you will, are so small to the eye sometimes, right? But it matters. It's a
Yeah.
difference between, do you want to just be good or do you want to be elite? Now, in the games I play, I want to be elite. I mean, that's just the way it's going to roll. So, because if it's not, then
What are we
it
doing?
just
Yeah.
I mean, you can certainly have a great time in this business, but I think from a leadership standpoint, you want to lead your teams to do something special,
Yep.
right? And so to me, that's about doing something that is exceptional. And so I thought, how can I contribute to this organization and really get a team that's buying into, we contribute to our growth of our business, and by how we operate, we will also contribute to support the bottom line as well. So what are the things we do? How do we always tie that? And so I just created a new vision, and to me it became like building another business in a business again. So it was appealing to my entrepreneurial side. It was in the industry that I love and care about. I really enjoy the sales teams and the recruiting teams. They make me laugh. I understand they're kind.
Yeah.
Sometimes not. Sometimes they don't make me laugh, but that's okay. I get it. Like when they're frustrated, I understand the space that it's coming from. So I just really felt I could make a difference internally by having a mind shift of what is this team and how do we have it? How do we clearly have a value proposition? It's really bringing a sales mindset internally and saying, what's our value proposition? Why do we exist? Why should people listen to us?
Yep.
Right?
It's
That kind of thing.
huge. And I'm curious about some of the issues that you took, but I want to add that when I was at Aerotech, we'd have different, CSAs, right? Customer Support Associate, but each account manager would be assigned a, CSA to partner with, and they would run the time cards and help me collect them. The when I had the better ones and the best ones, it changed completely how I sold in staffing and light industrial, because I felt the confidence of we could add 30 people in
Mm-hmm.
a week and we wouldn't be missing hours and losing out and looking like idiots behind the scenes. And when I had someone that maybe was less capable and I didn't have that trust and I was nervous about that piece of it, because in staffing you only get paid for every hour that you actually process, not only that someone works but that you
Yeah.
process in a timely manner. It mattered. The back office meant everything. I didn't understand that the first year or two, but then I did when I started getting called out for it, or my clients did, and all that. I was like, I worked so hard to get this account, and for my recruiter to place this person. Why are we messing? We are fumbling at the 3 yard line here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the guys when they intercept the ball and they're dangling it out before they get to the end zone, and someone comes and swats it and fumbles it. Before they get to touch, the pick six. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And so I completely with you, the value of the back office and just being in that pit and knowing that you have each other's back and like start to finish. And I respect their efforts and they respect mine, and then my recruiters and all that. And they were part of any event that we had as a triangle. Going to the what's the place? And it wasn't Universal, but Knott's Berry
Disney?
Farm out in LA or
Yeah,
lunches or
yeah, yeah.
whatever. That she was always included. Like she went with us as a team because it wasn't just me and my recruiters; it was her too, because she was a huge part of all of us getting paid and getting our commission. So I'm right there with you. Like that part of the
Mhm.
team, especially in staffing, is so important and so critical to include and make feel valued and for them to be, as you said, elite as well. And kind of everyone's got to be at the high standard. And if my recruiter didn't come through for them or for her, my recruiter would hear about it. Just like I would expect to too if I wasn't pulling my weight. So
Right, right.
I'm with you.
And for your clients and your candidates, you are coming as a team. It's not all just on one person, right? I
Yep.
mean, that makes a difference to them. And it helps starting to build trust because it's not if something goes wrong, it's when something goes wrong. It's
Yes.
like when that paycheck, something, was not deducted properly, is when we missed something or it was sent in the wrong spot or whatever. When that team has built some trust, when things don't go right, it's how you've handled it, and then it's the trust you have to be able to continue
Yeah.
to, you almost have an opportunity to deepen the trust and the relationship with a client,
You could
you
take
know
business from your competitor that was in there
exactly.
because they could screw up their time cards and all that, and then your manager is like, I can't deal with this firm anymore. Like I got rid of some of their people. Like I want
Happens
you to
all the
find the
time,
next
right?
5, 10 people all the time, all the
Happens a
time.
lot, yeah.
So there's so many different entry points beyond just checking in once a month. Hey, do you have roles I can work on? Hey, do you have roles I can work? I mean,
I
there's so
know.
many ways to kind of show your value and to pounce on when a competitor failed.
Yeah, and it is true also. I think that's so important for new up and coming recruiters and for leaders, like to just take the front office, back office. We know there's always a natural rub between the
Yeah.
two. It's a little bit of a sibling rivalry at times. There's a little that happens. That's a
Everyone's got
technical
their own
term.
personality for sure.
But
Absolutely.
there are definitely different perspectives, and it's so important at the top because it's very challenging because there are some leaders that really want to have that type of relationship. It has to be at the top, though, that there's the respect in bringing that sense of team
Yeah.
that's happening so that it filtrates throughout the organization because the front office has to have an appreciation for what the challenges are in the behind the scenes and vice versa. The back office has to understand no one gets up in the morning and says, how can we make your life horrible? Right? It's
It
like
happens.
that happen. But there are ways to really help bring that together as a team. And it all has to be done in the mindset of thinking about what's the best for the client and the
Yeah.
candidate. And we have so many people just thinking about my placement. I want my placement. I want my placement. I want my commission. And I get it. I get it that they're here for money. But I also think leaders are always telling people, this will make you more money. This will make you more money. I mean, that's true. But if a leader's leading like that, I think they're missing out on true opportunity to really lead and have depth and to differentiate because that is so shallow, right? I mean, you're only as good as the next person that comes and has a better offer.
Yeah.
It really has to be about the whole experience.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget early on going out on a sales visit with one of my account executives. I was traveling with him and we went to a client visit and he had a great laugh. He loved what he did. And the client, she just said, I work with you because you just really seem to love what you do. And it was a moment for me. Like there are those things like I
Yeah.
still remember this client. It was a big company and we were trying to crack in there and because you know what, and today I still get LinkedIn messages from him saying, you know what, I'm so thankful I've had this career. I mean, he loves what he does and it always attracted people because people knew it wasn't like I'm here just for you. It's like the people that call just when there might be an opening, right? I mean,
Yeah.
people
That.
see through that. Clients see through. Because what's interesting now, since I've done HR, I am the client.
Yeah.
People call me all the time. I get all the calls, all the emails. And so it's really interesting to be on this side. And I got to tell you, people see it in a second. They
A
don't. They know
second.
you're just trying to hit your number, but you can't you can do this and you still can make a living. But if you really want to enjoy it, you want to get the richness out of what we do, you have to connect and look in the eyeballs with people. You have to connect as a human level and see their need, empathize with their pain. If they're a leader that's like has three people down and everyone's working 80 hours, their kids in the hospital and they can't go see them because otherwise, there's going to be global outage of some sort. People have real issues. Like,
Yeah.
look at that. That's a human. And if you do help them out, like that was a big deal. So like you both get to celebrate. But if
Yeah.
it's just about the placement and about your money, that like, what's that?
Can't take it with you when you
Hey,
go.
I know people will
So
argue with me on that too, as well.
I won't be one of them. I mean, you can't take the money with you when you go from this life. So it kind of is what it is, and I get, things are more expensive, and I think there's more pressure nowadays. I get that, and I hear that. But to your point, nothing it's so obvious what someone's motivations are even through a digital message and a piece of content, and I really push that
Mhm.
with our recruiter clients in our program. Is like, I know it seems like it's just words on the screen, but it matters. And when I nitpick different words and tonage and all that, I'm like, when I tell you to space out posts for a certain way and format a certain way, there's a reason I'm telling you to do that, because we want the words to jump off the screen. We want the HR person or the hiring manager or the line manager, as you put it, to kind of read it and stop scrolling and be like, oh, there's something of value here that I'm reading. And I'm getting to know this person. I'm humanizing this recruiter, and they're sharing a story about their life or about their work or about insight or something I didn't know about hiring that now I do know, and I can give. And they're making me pay attention to them. And to your point, people are so drawn to people that have gratitude, whether it's verbal gratitude
That's
or
right.
just
Yeah.
a way of light that they bring. And it is easy. I mean, I no one has it better than I do in terms of work and everything, for the timing and where I'm at. And even still, I have to remind myself, like, wait, this is incredible. Like, because days are still hard, no matter what you're doing, right? It's all relative
Hmm.
to someone's journey. But when you can practice that piece of it, and yeah, it might sound woo woo to some people, but it's not. I mean, it's a biblical thing for a reason, because people are drawn to that, and to being intentional about that. It shows that you're intentional, but you're also invested in everything else. And this is a people business.
It
So
is.
who do we want to work with? People that understand that understand people and themselves, and just having that gratitude, it resonates. And so if you're stuck in that, work hard to get out of that rut, right? Where can you add value, and not just be stuck to a placement? And if you can't get out of that, if it's your manager, the leadership, or someone, like, you got to fix that, because people are seeing right through it. And you can blame and point fingers all you want, but at some point, like, every one of us has a choice to
That's right.
make
Hmm.
at the end of the day. And I love to hear that about your account executive, because he chose to just invest in this and embrace it for all the ups and downs, right? And having the expectation that
Hmm.
not everything's going to go perfect, but it's all right. We can figure everything out. And like, I
Yeah.
think like that alone, that'll make all your automation, all your content, all that way better to
Hmm.
your prospects. Right? People get so caught up in some of the tools. It's like, now figure out you first. Like, why are you here? As you said, like, what are we doing here?
What's your why? Yeah.
And
What's your why? What's your reason? How and this could be a stepping stone for some people, right? This
yep,
might be a part of their journey and they may go into other industries. And I've done that. I've had different pivots. Yet you have to look at it like everything you do is an investment of some sort. You're going to get some kind of payoff. It's either going to be a bigger one, a smaller one. You might go backwards in some cases, depending on how you show up. And I say like, and we've talked about this. I've started now this consulting. I'm doing consulting and advising now,
yeah,
and it's so fascinating. The reason I'm doing that, I didn't start this. I haven't done any marketing, but it's really from a career of investing and connecting and really building that credibility that I have a business started that I didn't intend to start because people
people
have
asked you to build it, basically.
they're like, we want you to help us, right? I mean, they were coming to me, and it's things I enjoy to do with people I love to work with, and it's being helpful. It's making a difference and an impact in areas that are important to me
Yeah.
at this place. So, but that wouldn't be happening if I didn't take a certain mindset and hold true to my own values along the way. Because you can come in contact with different companies that are going to press on your values and challenge your values. I've been in those situations as well. And those are sometimes where you really have to make that hard decision. Do I press through and press on and compromise at all, or do I move on, or do I find another way to do this constructively here, whatever it is. But you have to know, to your point, who are you? What do you stand for? What's your point? And it can't be just, it has to be, and I believe down deep people want to do things greater and bigger than themselves. Like, so what? We all know no one can do anything great by themselves. I mean, I've watched teams do miracles. I'm like, I've had so many lessons learned, like things I'm like, oh, we're not going to be able to do this. And I've watched my teams pull things out and I'm like, holy,
Yeah.
they showed me. I mean, what an amazing time that is too. That's
Yeah.
when you like come together and you can so celebrate because you did something bigger than yourself. Like that's when it really matters. I mean, that's why
Yeah.
we like watching, some of these, like those come from behind movies,
Yeah,
those
the
true
underdog
stories,
story. Everyone
like
loves that, right?
Miracle and all of
Yeah.
it. We love those. People love
Yeah.
those. Like we want that in our own personal life. So,
Yeah.
you can't do that if you want to just be a lone ranger and say, I'm going to just
There's always an
think about myself.
opportunity.
So think
Yeah.
long term and realize that whatever you're doing now is a building block to your future. I mean, and
Absolutely.
it comes fast.
Play the long game, right? Embrace the present, have that gratitude, and just always be playing the long game. That's the people I see end up being the most fulfilled and all that good stuff. No one says I wish I worked more hours, and they always say I spent more time with my family or enjoyed what I was doing more, was more in the present, and all that. And it's easier. You said double edged sword earlier in this. When we started recording about the technology and everything. I mean, that's the other side of it. It could take away our focus and our distractions, and we could consume instead of produce and all that. And I feel like that's half the reason why I post all the time and create a podcast like this. So I'm actively creating and not just consuming all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and really being able to have those boundaries for yourself. Because there's some opportunity to do some great things and to partner with amazing people nowadays.
Yeah.
But you got to be doing something worthwhile that can lead that even daily. Just own whatever you are doing in that day, do it to the best of your abilities. I always think about those videos where people, I think there was one I watched, there's like a subway artist. I don't know if they watched a subway or Jersey Mike's or whatever, but like just he made creating the sandwich like an experience unto itself. And I think that's what always sticks out to people, when people are just in it and no matter what, they don't care what anyone else is thinking, but like, hey, this is my job for the day. I'm gonna make the most of it. Again, it has to fit your personality. You don't want to be inauthentic, but every one of us, I think, really respects and our eyes are open when we see someone just really invested in their craft,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be recruiting. I mean, it might sound silly, but like that can
Yeah,
be in
absolutely.
recruiting as well. Yeah,
Think about the impact a job has on someone's life. It's massive.
yeah,
There's so many people I know right now that are looking and they're hurting. They need
yeah,
something, and even if it's not just financial, but just the sense of wanting to have a place to go, right? A
yeah,
community to join. So it is a
yeah.
big thing.
It's a huge thing. Well, let's wrap up and talk about kind of what the business that you did start, or I guess your clients and your network asked you to start, and the consulting with the Management More Group. And I know it sounds like it might not be your sole focus going forward, but a lot of companies either looking at merger and acquisitions or thinking about it. Talk to us a little bit more about kind of like what the projects you are working on.
Right now, yes, I'm doing business advising and consulting, executive coaching, and then some interim executive leadership. So those are
Yeah,
my three core areas that I
yeah,
focus. From an advising standpoint, my area that it seems that's the greatest demand, but I also happen to have a specialty in, is really around organizational design and development. And
yeah,
that really comes down to what's the organizational structure as it relates to the strategy. So, and it's like a lot of times people think, well, we just move the boxes around, right?
yeah.
I see it all the time. I mean, I've had leaders send me things on napkins like, oh, hey, we want to do this structure. I'm like, well, let's think about things. We want to
Sounds
think
like
about the
me.
culture.
Yeah,
We want to, yeah, and it works for a while. And then there's
yeah,
a point where businesses get a little more sophisticated. If you are emerging, if you're starting a new product line, if you've had accelerated growth, you're preparing for accelerated growth. So I have it happens that the three clients I'm working with right now all are wanting support on structure and design. And that means things such as not just the structure, it's the alignment of the whole organization. So it's the structure and how does that impact the processes? because you can't really, you need to know your structure to know what kind of processes, what are the way to optimize your processes. And then that impacts technology because you want to automate good processes with a good process flow. And
Yeah.
then rewards. How do you reward people? How are people, what are the ways of working? So it's really the whole design of an organization. At the center of all that is culture. So that is really the area that I really enjoy. I think it's because I've spent most of my career building. I mean, I built a couple businesses. I have, even at K-Force, opened a bazillion, I've opened a lot of offices starting from scratch. I've come into organizations and I built functions. So a lot of it is, how do you get that infrastructure done and built properly to be able to scale and do that financially well as have the right talent, especially as we prepare right now in this competitive work world. With AI, everything's changing too. So that's the big chunk of what I'm doing. Also, interim executive work. So sometimes there are gaps. Like, so I've had calls where companies have had someone leave quickly and they just need a stopgap to have oversight while they really determine, do we want to change this role? What should the structure be? How do we do this until we get the right person in? I can help them identify the right person for that role. And along the way, coaching always comes into play. So I've been working on my certification. I already had started that certification. I was already on that because I thought, as a leader, I just wanted to really improve that skill, because it's just, I'm a director driver. I like to go, tell. So I always have Post-it notes, ask questions. And I'm like, I think I need to be forced. So I've been practicing asking questions.
Well, it was my turn for this hour, but
Yes.
and hopefully they were all right. I don't know if I would pass
They've
the
been great
certification,
questions. It's been
but
great questions.
well, I'll go with one more question. What do you think is the defining piece to getting employees to buy into actually changing culture?
To get them to buy into what
To
culture?
changing a culture, right? If you
To
look at a
changing a
company, okay,
culture.
we're trying to change a culture. We want to get it here. What's the biggest key to get employee buy-in?
They have to be involved. They have to know the leaders are going. They have to have trust in leadership first, that the leaders are going to commit to that, because a lot of leaders say they will. And I've actually taken teams through these culture exercises to say, what do we want. So having them be part of that design process and
Yeah,
speaking into it, realizing not everybody's going to have the same wants, if you will, but a lot of it comes down to kind of the values and how people work, and the structure. People underestimate, because sometimes people think culture is, what do we do for fun? How do we keep everyone happy? How do we keep everyone engaged? But people really want to. There's so much more. They do want streamlined systems. They don't want a technology that's a hassle. They do want to trust their leadership. They do want to feel like they have opportunity to grow, right? All of these things play into the culture and the experience of an organization. So it is helping. An organization has to be serious about that design. Otherwise, I think it's leading from wherever you are to bring positive thoughts, mindset, perspective, lead by example from wherever you are. There's a Stephen Covey, he's a iconic one that, really shows how people can lead from anywhere they are. They don't have to be in a particular leadership. I put a lot of responsibility, though, on leadership for culture, though. I mean, it's everybody's role. Leaders have to commit to their teams and their people to where they want to go. And you can't just say, oh, well, we have a great culture and just let's wander around. You have to know where you're going. Like, you have to be able to define, this is exactly the culture that's required for us to do what we need to do and be who we say we are. Otherwise, if you don't have a plan and a design for culture, it will happen on you. And you're going to wake up one day and go, wow, we have this real issue in our organization and we can't get people to change. Because if you've got your whole organization behaving in a certain way that's become normal for them, it doesn't matter how great of a leader you are. They will beat you.
it's not just pizza parties. is what I'm hearing.
No, it's
Yeah,
not pizza parties.
it's not a free lunch. Yeah,
It's a
it's being
complicated thing. It really
yeah
is. And I think too much leaders have recently, especially coming out of COVID, there's just been a lot of focus on these things people don't really want to do.
yeah. Yeah, the employees are fighting back a little bit, which
They
is
don't
good.
want to do
I
it.
think it's healthy to create a little bit more of a balance and a forum, and great negotiation is when both sides come away feeling like good, but they left us a little bit on the table, and that's I think
Hmm.
it's been skewed one way for too long. I think there's probably some overcorrection maybe happening in some areas, but things tend to kind of balance themselves out. And
Yeah.
I think people they're striving for that investment, that authenticity. They want their day to day to mean more, and starting to think about that more. And that could be a generational thing. And if so, I'm here for it, and I think it's good. Um, so that's all good stuff. But Debbie, thank you for being here. This was fantastic. As you said, it was going to fly by. An hour has somehow flown by already.
It
Um,
has. It
so
really
this was
has. I've so
fantastic.
enjoyed this. Like I said, we didn't even get through some of the topics I know we wanted to cover because we had some good, hopefully it was relevant and helpful for your listeners.
Oh, super relevant. Yeah. I mean, just from the process, from the selling, from leadership, some of those kind of just the timeless principles that work, whether you're using a fax machine or fiber internet. It doesn't
Yeah,
really matter.
exactly.
So I appreciate you. Congrats on the launch of your business, and I wish you continued success. Um, if you want to connect with Debbie, check out the LinkedIn, the website, all that will be on the episode page. Make sure to do that. Um, this was great. So thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you for
Yeah,
what you do too,
of course.
helping people because when you are in this industry, it's so helpful to have a place to go that's specific to the staffing industry because it is very unique.
Yeah, well, we try to
Yeah.
be a lighthouse, so
Yeah.
that's all we can do, and I appreciate that. And this is great. So we just keep it going, but this would be super valuable for the audience. So I'm glad we did this. So
Awesome.
cool. Well, until next time, we'll see y'all. Have
Very
a good
good.
one.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.